Hey y'all, before we start today's episode, I want to point out this giant box over here. I got a box next to me because the new tapes are in. The June 2026 Rue Defense Tape Club compilation is here. If you are a collector of tapes and stuff, these are the kind of tapes you get if you sign up for the Tape Club. You can do so at tapeclub.substack.com. All right, today's guest, the one and only Darren Hayman of the bands Hefner, New Starts, and The French. Darren has had a 30-year career, debuting in 1996 with Hefner, of course, and most recently will be launching a series of re-releases and reissues, stuff that was either never digitized or lost somewhere in the digital realm. This was a great chat, and it really felt like sitting down with a friend and just chatting over a beer, even though I'd never met Darren until we hopped on. So it was really cool, a lot of fun. I already told you guys about the new tapes, so I will spare you on that spiel. But why don't you look for the secret Easter egg right now in my conversation with Darren. All right, Darren, thank you so much for joining me. Really appreciate you taking the time to join us here on the J-Card.
No trouble.
So Darren, you're coming at me from, it's very late over where you are. Are you in London or you're somewhere else in England?
No, I'm in London and it's 11 p.m. No, it's not that late. It's late for old people, not for us young people.
Do you stay up late? I don't know. I feel like I'm in bed, man. I'm in bed by 11. Now, I can't say I'm sleeping, but I'm in bed. I'm reading on my phone or some shit. But
I think I'm very rarely asleep in the same day. I think I always go through to the next day.
Is that like a holdover just from music career stuff where like you're always in clubs late, so you're always staying up late?
I don't sleep that much. I get up quite early and I go to bed quite late and I don't sleep that much. And I think it means I'm having more life and my life is longer than everyone else's because I'm awake more.
That's a good way to put it. But do you just pop out of bed in the morning? Because I go to bed late as hell, but I wake up late. I love to sleep in, and I feel like that, I lose the mornings, but you gain the mornings too. You're just out here always active, always doing everything.
Yeah, pretty much. I don't really sleep that well. I sleep properly. Maybe once every 2 weeks, I suddenly go into a coma, and my body says, "Right, you need more now." But
so you get it all. You get it all at in one go, one big fell swoop. That makes sense.
I just find the nighttime I get a bit excited. Like once it's like midnight, I get a bit excited and suddenly decide to watch a movie or write a song or do a painting.
I was gonna say, yeah, the nighttime is the right time, and that was actually something I was just about to ask. Is do you get bursts of creative energy? Is that when you do the best work or the most of your work, or do you just kind of let your work flow whenever?
Sometimes, but I don't think I'm religious about any time. But I suppose it's not about a certain time when you're creative, but I think it is a good idea to always pursue creativity when it happens. So regardless of whether it's morning or late at night or 2 a.m, I think if you suddenly have an idea, you owe it to the idea to perhaps pursue it. I mean, maybe that's not so easy, if you have other commitments. I don't have any kids. I don't have a proper job, so I can, pursue it when I like,
But you have a certain type of commitment, a commitment to creativity and commitment to art, right? I guess that's the trade-off. Can you tell me a bit about how Hefner started? Tell me like where it all came from and what was like those first moments of pursuing creativity and like wanting to, make music.
I remember liking music a lot and buying music and not really knowing too many examples of music that came from where I was. I think I'm always been interested in music in location and places and where people are from. And most of the music I was hearing had an American accent, I think. And then I saw Billy Bragg play. And Billy Bragg comes from just down the road. And then that was the first time I heard someone singing in my accent, which probably sounds to you or most people like a London accent. It pretty much is. Um, I went to art college. I thought I was going to draw comics. And then I was writing songs, and then I think I became aware of how someone could make records and not necessarily be famous or big. So I got into American bands, but like very sort of lo-fi things like Sebado or Mountain Goats.
When was this?
This would be, well, no, I mean, I played my first shows on stage like 91, 92. I think I started calling myself and people around me Hefner around maybe 94, 95. And then I started sending out tapes. I had a 4-track tape player, and I always liked recording. I still like recording. I like recording more than any other part of it. I like it more than playing live. I like it more than writing. I like the magic of layering sounds. And then
Sorry to cut you off, but I wanted to ask about that. So you said this was around like maybe 91, 92 that you were getting into stuff like maybe the Mountain Goat, Sebado.
No, probably a bit later. That stuff, but I think that stuff encouraged me to not think that what I had to do was get a proper recording studio or get a record deal. I saw people making records in a very small way on cassettes or 7-inches. There's a band from Portland, Oregon that used to stay at my house when I came over called the New Bad Phase, and I found them really inspiring as well, the way they did everything themselves. So then I made a 7-inch with 2 guys, John and Ant, 2 friends that played with me sometimes. And then that 7-inch arrived at 2 Pure, a record company, and they brought me in for a meeting and they said, "What are you? Are you an artist on your own or are you a band?" And I said, "I don't know. I'll go and ask the other guys." So I went to the other guys and said, "Are we a band? You could be a band if you want to be." So it's a story I've not really heard before, in that actually the offer of a record deal kind of made me form a band. And I thought, okay, let's make it a band then.
I mean, it makes sense though, because you said your favorite part is recording, and I feel like you can record. You don't have to have a set band to record. You can record on your own. You can record with people. You can record with like a few friends who come in from time to time to play parts. That's why maybe why maybe it fell that way, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's true. And that is more my life now. I mean, I do have one band. But yes, I can choose whoever I want for a song, or I can do everything myself. I think back then it seemed like such a exciting opportunity that this record label was going to pay for us to do things and travel and do things. And I liked playing live more then. But I thought I might as well do it with 2 friends.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I do want to go back to the mentions of Sebado and Mountain Goats and like discovering that kind of stuff. So my question here is like, obviously it was a very different time and music didn't travel as like instantaneously as it does now. You know, now you can look up the smallest band who has 20 fans who are based in like the middle of nowhere in Nebraska and go, whoa, now I can just listen to their catalog instantaneously. I think Sebado and the Mountain Goats are, even though they're greats and amazing, all-timers, they still are like very small comparatively in the giant scheme of music. How did they find their way to you all the way overseas?
Yeah, I mean, then they were tiny. I mean, I saw the Mountain Goats play in London and other places with 5 other people. I didn't really understand, actually. I didn't really understand how John did that. John Daniel, I didn't really understand, like, how are you traveling and only 5 people are coming to see you? Like, how do the the figures work out with money. I couldn't really work out how he was affording to do it. There was the rough trade shop in Covent Garden, and there was a guy who worked in rough trade called Jamie Tugwell, and he loved all of that stuff. And it might have, I mean, what's the biggest band I've mentioned then? Maybe it started somewhere like Pavement or Dinosaur Jr. or something. Probably Dinosaur Jr. And then I worked out the guy that was in Dinosaur Jr. Was in Sabado or something like that. But more than that, I just started recognizing Jamie's handwriting, because in rough trade they would have the records and he'd put stickers on them. And there were two guys in rough trade, and both had brilliant taste actually. But Daryl liked all the electronica and weird electronica, which I didn't mind either. But I started to recognize Jamie's handwriting, so whenever it said like American lo-fi or something, then if it had his handwriting on this little description, so that would be how I started to find, I don't know, Refrigerator, Simon Joyner. I loved Simon Joyner. That's another one of that like. But all the time thinking that all these guys were very American and sung an American accent, and however I was filtering it, I had to not copy it directly. I had to just be inspired by the spirit of it, which is mainly that, it was made very cheaply, which made it sound exciting to me. It still does. It still sounds. I mean, sometimes I record something on the phone, and sometimes I'm thinking, does that sound better than when I'm in the studio? Sometimes it does, because it's just about accidents and.
Yeah, it's so interesting to me though, because I think to me, like personally, it's almost a flip side where there was a label I discovered. Obviously the label was already long gone by the time I discovered them, but to me, I was like, whoa, this is a sound I'd never like heard before, and it was all on one label, and it was a label called Sarah Records that were in Bristol. And similar, like I just think it's interesting that like I'm here in the States and I was like, oh, this like label in Bristol was so cool, like oh my god, every band sounds incredible.
Yeah, I know Sarah Records, and I know Claire. I know Claire who ran Sarah Records. She's a friend of mine, and I know some of my friends were on Sarah Records. They're all, hopefully they won't mind me saying this, my friends that are on Sarah are slightly older than me. I'm just a little bit too young to have been right in the heyday of Sarah. But my friend Amelia was in Heavenly and is in Heavenly now. And my friend Harvey Williams was in Blue Boy and Field Mice. So I know a few of those guys.
Hell yeah, those are all great names. The Wake are one of my favorites out of there. But I mean, yeah, they're hit after hit. You mentioned Portland, Oregon. What's the connection there? Because I lived there for a little bit, so I'm curious. What's the connection to Portland, Oregon?
Well, it was this band, New Bad Things, and they played a show in London upstairs at the garage. And I guess sometimes you have these moments in your life where, sliding doors moments where you make a decision and you don't realize what you did in that decision. And they were playing on stage, and there's about 6 or 7 of them. And in between one of the songs, they said, "Hey everyone, we've got nowhere to stay tonight. Can we sleep at anyone's flat?" And I don't know why I would have done this. In some ways, it doesn't seem like me. But I went up to one of them and said, "Sure, do you want to stay at mine?" So the whole band that night stayed at mine. And then they continued to every time they came over. But they also opened up that world because they were also a band that recorded at home. And they came from Portland, Oregon. And eventually they offered the favor back. They said, "Well, why didn't you come over to us?" And so I went over there and did shows there before I think all I'd released was a cassette then. But
when did you go to Portland?
95, 96. I know that I saw someone fell off their chair when I told them this. a couple of weeks ago, I know that I saw Elliott Smith play in a bar when I was there, which I didn't really, like when you have experiences like that, like I didn't know how important what was happening was at the time, so I didn't like turn my brain on to record. Do you know what I mean? It was only after, like a little while afterwards, I went, oh, yeah, that happened, didn't it?
I was going to ask about Dead Moon, actually, if you'd know
Oh,
them.
I know of them. No, I don't really know. I can't. I won't answer any questions very well on that. I wouldn't be an expert on that, but I'm aware of them. Yeah.
So when you went over to Portland to play, that's like a hell of a long way. I mean, I imagine you didn't just go there and play a couple shows and then come all the way home. It must have been based around some sort of tour or something.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting talking about this because I'm aware of how I'm coming over because it sounds really wild and glamorous. Like, oh, I just let bands sleep at my place and then I just went over to Portland and played shows before I had a record deal. And perhaps even I'm now slightly impressed by my younger self because it sounds quite audacious and confident and brave. But I don't see myself that way. I had friends in Vancouver as well who were in a band. And so, you know, I don't know why I did it. I just did it.
Sometimes you have to, right? Yeah, it's like what you mentioned, the sliding doors moment.
But it was, yeah, but it was genuinely... the thing that was happening when I went to or like these tiny ramshackle bands playing and you know, a fanzine culture and what's the record shop? What's the big record shop that would have been there at that time?
There was one called Everyday Music. There's there was a Jackpot. Was that the other one? I don't know. I'm not too sure.
Might say it and I might not recognize it. Anyway, it's not like that wasn't happening in London. It's just that I didn't know it was happening in London. So after I came back from that, and then I did start releasing record. Well, I released one 7-inch, and then from that I got signed by a bigger label. And oddly, I mean, now lots of these bands are way bigger than Mountain Goats are way bigger than me now. But at the time, I kind of almost leapfrogged it. I kind of had this ambition, like, wouldn't it be great if I did a couple of 7-inches? And then I got signed, and that was kind of a problem in a way because the record company said, do you want us to pay to put you in a recording studio? And I was like, not really. No, I kind of want to do it at home. So that was a dilemma. But that stuff was happening in London. It's just that I didn't know about it. And as I started releasing records here, then I started better finding that sort of network of small bands and labels here. But it was odd that I actually found out about that way of making records, you know, from America.
I'm curious, what would you say are like some of the biggest ways that you've seen the industry change over the last, you know, whatever, 20, 30 years in terms of, you know, being a band at that level? Like, obviously, I mean, I don't know if it's obvious, but I would say maybe easier to start now than ever because it's so easy to make stuff, but maybe there's more noise, so it's harder to get people to listen.
I mean, I wouldn't really know anything about starting now. I wouldn't really know anything about starting. I mean, oddly, a month ago, my friend Johnny at Falmouth University down in the Cornwall, he asks me to go there once a year to teach. And it's great to teach because you end up finding out what you know yourself. But the older I get, the harder it is to teach kids and tell them what to do because I wouldn't even know. Because even like when I was talking to them, some of the ways they're doing music or what, like even what they think, what they call releasing a song or what they call it an EP. And I remember this girl saying to me, "Oh, I'm releasing an EP, you know, next week." And I'm like, "What even is that? That the word EP means something to me, but I bet it means something different to you." And I think it does mean something different to them. I think it means like 2 songs or something. I don't know. I wouldn't know how to start. I think there was a point when there was a point when I thought that I'd never released an album, two albums the same way. There was one point when I was on my 13th or 14th album. I thought, I don't think it's ever been the same two times in a row. Like each time I'd come around to release an album, someone would say, right, we need to make an EPK. Like, what the fuck's an EPK? Or this time we're doing downloads. Or this time we're not doing any press adverts. Press adverts are dead. We don't do that anymore. Or maybe a couple hours later they said, no, we're doing press adverts now. Press advert. Like, I remember thinking, God, it's never the same. Like every single record would change because I think it's changed so rapidly. I do think that two or 3 years ago, I kind of thought that I was in a position of security, that I thought that even though everything changed, I thought that I would still carry on like that, like financially. But even that isn't true. The last 3 years after COVID, everything's gone like that. Like no one's selling any records. So even that I couldn't count on.
Yeah, well, that's like the tech industry devaluing music to all hell, and no one actually buys anything. People just like perpetually rent, but the rental fee goes directly in the pockets of all the tech companies, and then the sliver that's left goes to the labels. So it's like,
Yeah.
wait, what? Do the artists actually get anything? But that's a whole bigger conversation. I want to ask about.
There is something positive about the way things are, and I think you alluded to it quickly yourself. There is a kind of democratization of everything now. So in some ways, like it's very unfair the way streaming works, and no one buys records, and just everything you just said. But there is something about potentially anyone could randomly suddenly have something amazing happen. And in a way, the students that I was talking to 2 weeks ago, when they said, I'm releasing something next week, well, they're releasing something in every sense in the same way. I was going to say there aren't gatekeepers. There are gatekeepers because Spotify and these things still do control the things, but
The gates are differently kept, it's, I don't know. It's like the way I look at it is the past is easy to romanticize because, it's less current, right? But the idea of, there were still a bunch of people making a bunch of music. It just was never getting recorded or archived. It was all being played somewhere. And if you were lucky enough to get plucked and to be given a deal, that deal was still like mostly alone. And like most of the folks who were getting deals weren't actually like turning it into, long-term wealth. It was like, okay, here you go. Here's your chance. I don't know. I think music has always been and will always be like a luck of the draw. It's like the
yeah.
0.1% can it actually make a living off of it.
I still think that kind of chance of a wild card thing is there, perhaps in a way it didn't used to be.
I'm curious though, when the students you were talking to, what was their or were they musicians, or was it like music industry class, or what was
They were
the?
musicians and songwriters, yeah.
It's interesting because so I was part of a panel that spoke to a class of students at, I think it was Georgetown. It was like a remote thing, so I didn't actually go, but that was to music industry people, like kids who wanted to get into the industry but weren't musicians. And so it's interesting to me to hear the different sides of it.
Yeah, I think about sort of 9 or 10 years ago, I did do some things like that. But I spoke to, where I could perhaps, how do I get a record deal? Or how do I do this? And I felt like I could give some answers to those questions. I don't think I could now. And I think if someone asked me to teach on something like what you were mentioning or a music industry course, I'd have to say, I don't know shit about that now. I think this course was okay because what Johnny really wanted me to talked to them about was songwriting and how do you get ideas. And luckily, that's unchanged. Really, that's the same as it ever was.
Yeah, and that's a way more fun and interesting. No offense to the people I talked to, but sounds like a way more interesting group of people to talk to. I mean, for my cohort, I basically was like, hey, look, I'm no professional. I don't do music for a living. I do film for a living, but I will say now is a great time to get into it because the opportunity is insane. It's just that you have to find your way into it and you have to like knock on the door very hard to even get in. But once you get, I mean, especially like there was one person in there who was like, I'm interested in working in the cybersecurity side of music, like the tech security side. I was like, well, that's great because I think you're only going to need more and more of that. Right. But I was like, I don't know if I can help you, but knock on the door hard because you'll probably get in,
I think my advice used to be, and maybe this advice does work, because I think what the story I told you about me starting is, I think what I used to say to kids is I used to say, do it anyway. Like, do it like you're successful anyway, which is sort of what I did. I didn't really sort of go around, sort of in a way, I'm saying the opposite to you in a way. I didn't really knock on doors. I just did it anyway and started releasing records. And I think what happened with me was the record company went, hold on, this guy is doing it anyway. And I think that's still kind of impressive. I think if like a record company or whatever the gatekeeper is, saw you doing it and becoming successful on your own, it's like, okay, well they're doing half the work for us already. So maybe that as a lesson does still work.
Yeah, but that's true. That's the truth. They're doing half the work for us already. Anything to get a mostly finished product on the books, I guess, is the idea. Let's do this. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to get into some music and we're going to talk about some Hefner songs. All right, we're back with the mixtape. So, Darren, as I alluded to when we first started this, I feel like I alluded to it. You saved my ass by jumping on and doing this for me this week. So I do owe you one. But because of that, you didn't have a lot of time to come up with a grand thematic kind of statement for this mixtape, which normally I urge all the guests to do. But tell me anything that was going through your mind.
Right. Okay. So, well, maybe there is a theme then, actually. Maybe you get that's made me think of a theme because we're connected by Jamie Halliday of Audio or Antihero. And basically, Jamie contacted me a couple of months ago and said, Jesus Christ, Darren, your online streaming catalog is in a mess, is in a complete mess. And he sent me this like 3-page email of everything I should do. And I said, there's no way I'm going to do that. Can I pay you to do it? And apparently I can. And so actually there is something that links these 6 songs in that Jamie put us two in contact and I told him to choose the 6 songs. So what he's chosen is 6 songs that are going to be new to streaming that are previously have been lost in my back catalog. So that's maybe what the theme is. The theme can be songs that were disappeared from the internet that are returning to the internet.
I love that. That is like such a poignant and beautiful theme. So let's start with the first song. The first song is called Pull Yourself Together, Didgeridoo version, and it's by Hefner. Tell me a bit about this one.
So Pull Yourself Together was Hefner's 3rd single. And when I started to write it, I thought, I know what I want to do. I want to write a 2-chord song like Roadrunner. And I want those 2 pounding songs like Roadrunner, Jonathan Richman. And then I took it to the band and they said, how should we play it? And I said, play it like Roadrunner. Play it like You're in the Modern Lovers, or play it like Roadrunner. And the producer said, well, how should I record it? And I said, well, I think we should go for like a Roadrunner sound, like so it sounds a bit like Jonathan Richman doing Roadrunner. I think that's the sort of sound we should go for. And then when we released it, the reviews all said that it sounded too much like Roadrunner by Jonathan Richman.
Like, job done.
Yeah. The version that came out originally didn't have a didgeridoo, but when you're sort of young and you're in a studio, if you just see something in the corner, you just go, "Oh, it's here." So in the guitar solo in this version, it has a didgeridoo, and like I say, the aforementioned Jamie, I think at a couple of weeks ago said, "Hey, do you know that the didgeridoo version isn't online?" I was like, "Well, there's probably a reason for that, right? There's probably a reason we didn't release it in the first place." But if you've always liked this song and always felt like it would have sounded better with a didgeridoo in, then dreams can come true.
It's true. And I agree with you about the thing where when you're young and you're in the studio, you just want to use whatever's there. Literally, same thing on one of my something I made. We were recording in Rhode Island, which is near Jonathan Richmond area too, so that's kind of cool. But we were recording up in Rhode Island, and we saw a rain stick in the corner, like one of those that you flip over and it makes like a rain sound, and that's on somewhere on some album, because guess what? It was there, so.
What happens with those things sometimes is like you go like bagpipes, tuba, dulcimer, but then the engineer goes, "Yeah, all right, lads," and then you get to the end, it's like, I can't hear the dulcimer anymore. I can't hear the tuba. Like, yeah, it's okay. They're in there somewhere. They're a texture, says the engineer.
Exactly. All right, let's listen to a little bit of Pull Yourself Together Didgeridoo version by Hefner. Pull yourself together. Pull yourself together. Pull yourself together. Pull yourself together. Next up, we have Punk Rock's Going to Die by The French. So tell me a bit about this one.
Oh, well, once again, Jamie found that this B-side was mislabeled on Spotify and wasn't up there at all. Like, it was missing. Like, it was there, but when you played it, a different song played. I don't know. I think I was thinking of The French is a band I formed after Hefner, and it was sort of more electronic music. And I think I was just thinking about when people had, I don't know, like people say rock and roll's here to stay, rock and roll will never die, or things like that. And I think I was just trying to negate that. And I was just thinking, well, what if some of them do die? What if punk rock dies? And sometimes I don't know if I think anything more than that. I just think of a title and I think, I often try and think, if I saw that title on the back of the record, I'd be interested in it. If I saw a song called Punk Rock's Going to Die, I'd think, what is that song about? And so sometimes I think of these titles as writing prompts.
That's a good way to look at it, honestly. You know what I hear? Okay, maybe you're not going to like this, but I hear this a lot from people is like in my line of work, I work a lot like on making YouTube videos and stuff, like not these, but for clients and stuff like that. And one thing I've heard is start with the title of the video. So that's an approach to making YouTube videos. It's an approach to making songs. Why not?
Yeah, I often have a title or an idea. If it's not a title, it's a concept for a song. What about a song told from the perspective of this? Or sometimes it's an idea for a record. But I think that question, which you haven't asked, what comes first, music or lyrics? I think I often answer that with, actually, it's often the title. I think of songs as puzzles, so it's like Punk Rock's Gonna Die is setting myself a puzzle. I've got the title, now I have to write the song.
And then the riffs come later most of the time, or because for me it's always music first, like 95% of the time, and I think that's the majority of people are that way, I assume. I don't know.
Music. What did you say? Music's first.
Music first, yeah.
Yeah, I have literally thousands of voice notes. Like, so often what I do is I sing the idea into the phone away from a guitar, or a keyboard, because I find that my muscle memory goes to the same places. But often when I'm with the guitar, I'm trying too hard to do something I haven't done before, or trying to be too clever. Whereas if I sing something, it often has some kind of nursery rhyme quality. And so you get back to the guitar and it's like, oh, fuck, it's just G and C, or it's something really simple.
I feel like I'm getting the songwriting class right now for free. That was awesome.
Um, um, so yeah, you're right. I do have lots of music on standby. I still think the really magical, the really special times are when you have a title and you go, I've got a title, and maybe it goes blah, blah, blah. And if it all kind of comes at once, that's often when the song's really good. Sometimes they come out of hard work and they're still good. Sometimes songs go through 10 drafts and then eventually they're good. But what's really fun is when you're not even sure how you wrote it because it happened so quickly.
Yeah, and I will say the muscle memory thing, though, that is true. Every time I'm just playing something randomly, it's always in A major, all the time.
Oh, I found recently that my ideas that I have when I sing into the phone or record it are often in D. So I guess like D is my natural place where my voice goes or something. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't really tried to
I wonder
learn
if you
that.
collected everybody's natural like intonation where the majority of people would land.
Oh, okay. So this is what I don't understand, and somebody must know how this happens. But when you're at a football game or any sport, but particularly football, and the crowd sings, they are in a key, right? Like when West Ham sings I'm Forever Blowing Bubbles, it's in a key. How does that happen? How do like several thousand people decide what key the song's in? Or is it that the song has always been in that key and subconsciously they just know the key it's in?
I think it pulls people into a certain key. Whoever's the loudest, everyone just kind of pulls towards them, maybe. Who knows? It's also just a bunch of drunk guys yelling, really, so who knows?
Maybe it's like when you get murmuration of birds and they start going in patterns. Maybe it's something like that.
I'm sure they're tied somehow. Okay, let's do this. Let's listen to a little bit of Punk Rock's Gonna Die by the French, because I feel like I derailed us like crazy. So here we go. Punk Rock's Gonna Die by the French.
Lizzie's got punk rock eyes, but punk rock's gonna die.
Next up, we talked about Jonathan Richman, and here he makes an appearance somewhat. Since She Started to Ride is the song, and it is by Hayman, Watkins, Trout, and Lee. So tell me a bit about this one.
At one point, I got myself into a bit of trouble with a legal case with my record company, which meant I couldn't record. Like whilst the legal case on, I would jeopardize the court case if I recorded. It was horrible. It was horrible, actually. It's a horrible thing to happen. But I decided to, okay, I can't release records. What can I do? So I decided to do something that wasn't really about writing and wasn't really about recording. So I formed a bluegrass band. And we just played country clubs. And so we would do bluegrass songs, and we would do sort of things. Maybe we did do traditional bluegrass songs, but we also tried to pick songs that maybe. I think we thought this was funny because this was somebody else from a sort of new wave rock and roll thing who'd done one country album, and so we thought for us to always also be that, like, Jonathan Richman is an interloper. He's a fraud on that song doing the music that isn't his, and so will we. And yeah, once again, keeping in with the theme, this was a song that we recorded for that album, because eventually we were able to record, and we recorded an album quickly, which is mostly covers. There's a couple of songs I wrote on it. But yeah, Jamie went, "Oh, okay. Is there anything unreleased on that?" And I went, "Oh, yeah, there is. There's this one." So this is.
I'm curious. I'm curious about bluegrass. So from what I know, my knowledge is like nil, but like mandolins are an important part of bluegrass. But what are the other, like, what makes a bluegrass quartet or a bluegrass band?
Well, I think you could have. I think you'd have more than four. We had violin, banjo, bass, and guitar, and I played bass in that band. But you could have mandolin. You could have another guitar. I think what's interesting about it, and I think a thing that attracted to me at the time, is that it's a very rhythmic music that can make people dance, but it rarely has drums. I don't think you usually expect there to be drums in a bluegrass band. So the bass, let's see here, I've got my...
Oh, so it's an upright bass.
Well, I didn't so much in that band, actually. In that band, I played an electric bass, but, if you were doing bluegrass properly, you would play it on that. But you're sort of doing the kick drum, so you're going boom, 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 and the guitar is kind of doing the snare. The guitar's going junk, junk. And I think that's what was fun about it, is that we got to play this lively, upbeat music, but we didn't have to get a car. We could go to gigs on the bus, which maybe that's how the music started. Maybe that's how the music started.
I mean, I will say, you alluded to this earlier about how you prefer, well, you correct me if I'm wrong, but you prefer the writing of the tunes and this studio experience more to like the touring. And I myself have always said I'm never, ever going to tour any of my stuff because I don't want to load in and load out and haul gear and deal with all the logistics and all the bullshit. So that's where I'm coming from.
It doesn't even change when you're big, really. Like, I mean, I've never got that big. I got big enough so that at one point I had someone to carry some stuff. We had, I think the most Hefner had was 3 people working for us, like 1 to do T-shirts, 1 to help with the gear, 1 to do sound. But when we did support bigger artists like Violent Femmes and Billy Bragg and Bell and Sebastian and some of these bands, it still looked just like they might not have had to carry the gear, but they still had to wait around for 5 hours. It still had that same weird kind of tension. And I can't explain it. And I love being on stage. And I love playing a show, but everything that surrounds a show just makes me nervous. It's just like too much waiting.
I had someone call it once. I heard someone call it once, like the eye of the hurricane. Like the 45 minutes that you played the show are awesome, and then all the hours around it are just terrible.
It's kind of like a constant liminal space. It's like that feeling you have at a service station or an airport where you're like, I can't go anywhere. I can't really read a book. I can't really do anything. I'm just here. And that's kind of what most gig days are like.
There you go. That's hilarious. All right. Well, let's listen to a little bit of Since She Started to Ride by Hayman, Watkins, Trout, and Lee. We're halfway through the mixtape. The next one here is called Little Squirrel, Little Arrow. Tell me a bit about this one.
You're Russian, right?
Yeah.
Little Squirrel and Little Arrow is the translation of Belka. Do you know this?
Yeah, I do, but why don't you tell the listeners?
Belka and Strelka are the first 2 mammals to go into space and return. 2 dogs, Belka and Strelka. They go into space and return. The listeners may know, like, what's more famous outside of Russia, I guess, is Laika. But what I used to say on stage, and I'm saying now, is I don't know why Laika gets all the glory when Laika only did half the job. Right? Because Laika went up, but Laika didn't come back, Whereas, and I think I'm right in saying, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, Alexei, that like Belka and Strelka are held in much higher esteem in Russia, whereas the rest of the world knows more about Leica. So I drew.
Leica was first, and Belka and Strelka were the ones who made it back. Belka and
But
Strelka.
it's like first to get there and get back, right? That's better,
It's true. It's true. Hey, no doubt.
I'm kind of. Let me show you. So I'm kind of crazy about. So these are all stamps of all the dogs in space, and actually over here we have Belka and Strelka. Can you see that?
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah. For the listeners, I mean, we have some viewers, but for the listeners, that is what is that? It's like a photo of them, or
a Polaroid photo of them stuffed in Moscow at the Space Museum when I went to Moscow.
Wait, and so this was off of a comp that was was about space?
Yeah, I did an exhibition with some artist friends, and I tried to paint all of the dogs. So I did tiny little cigarette drawings of all of the dogs that went into space. And yeah,
how many have there been?
I can't remember now. As soon as a project's over, I just press eject on all that. It would have been a time when I could have told you. But
more than 3?
No, more than that. No, there was a few. There was quite a few dog missions before. It's like the humans. We know John Glenn, Yuri Gagarin, and Neil Armstrong, but we don't really remember the guys who went on the 3rd mission.
Have they? I wonder which dog breed was like the most like successful in space. It's built like a dachshund was just like it's built for it. It's so like long and weird it can float around.
There's one thing about the story that's interesting, and I think we'll have to, don't quote me on the absolute details, but something like Strelka has puppies, and then Khrushchev gives one of the puppies to Kennedy. And so I think some of the heirs of Strelka lived in the White House for ages and carried on living like through to like the Reagan era, that there were descendants of Strelka in the White House.
Deep state operatives in the form of dogs. So wait, but tell me about the tune, and I guess I feel like we pivoted straight into dog talk, but I want to hear about the tune.
Actually, this song is actually quite expositional and quite clear. I am just singing about the dogs, and I'm just singing about the dogs being in the capsule, and I'm singing about them going up and then coming back down, and everyone building little statues for them. I mean, the song is quite straightforward. It just tells the story of dogs going into space and coming back.
Was it purposely written for this comp, or you just happened to have it laying around and were like, great, I have the perfect song for this?
No, this was written for it. And I think this would be an example of, I guess one day I was looking at it. My own little label, like when I release some myself, is called Belka. So I'd already called my label Belka after. And then I think I've only ever released one thing on its sister label, Strelka, which I don't know. It had to have a sister label. But I think when I found out the translation was Little Squirrel and Little Arrow, once again, that sounds like a song to me.
It does.
Yeah.
Well, let's listen to a little bit of it. Here is Little Squirrel, Little Arrow.
Thrice round the globe and parachute down to the field.
I was interested in the process behind these next 2 songs. So let's start with this one, We Are Not Evil, by Darren Hayman and The Long Parliament. So from the notes I got, it is about 17th century UK civil wars and witch trials. And I guess my question is like, what's the research process like for this stuff? Because it seems like it's deep. This is deep stuff.
Yeah. Around this time, I was. There's a few projects like this. as I was sort of said right at the beginning, I'm very interested in place. And I was writing I'd written a couple of albums about Essex, where I'm from. I'd written an album about London. But the language I use in like I use slang, I use very sort of idiomatic things that I try and sing in a way that's similar to the way I speak. And I thought, what if I set a record in the past? What would that be like? What would the language that I would choose if I can't sing about mobile phones and stuff anymore? So I was looking for something that happened in Essex a long time ago. And in the 17th century, a ridiculous amount of women were hung for being witches whilst the English Civil War was going on. The album it's from, this song is called The Violence. But it was also, I mean, it sounds ridiculous to say, but it was a time when there was a lot of war going on. There's always a lot of war going on. So I felt that it could have some resonance. It's women being treated really badly, which they still are. So there's that as well. There was also a thing that happened to me, which fed into this album, that whilst after a gig in Nottingham, another city in England, I got carjacked and I got beaten up really badly and ended up in hospital. And so one thing that happens when something bad happens to you and you're a songwriter is people come up to you and they go, oh, hear what happened to you. And you go, oh, yeah, it's pretty bad. And then they go, but, you'll get a song out of it though, won't you? And it's like, yeah, but I'd rather not have my skull fractured and be hospital. So I kind of wanted to write about that, but write about it in a way that didn't make people go, oh, he's written about getting beaten up. So the album's called The Violence, and it's about this violence to women, and it's about fear. So I could use that as well in this record.
And so the next tune, I don't want to tease it too much, but the next tune that is on this mixtape also is related to the violence. But is the violence is a lot of it historical, or is it?
Violence is a whole double album about the English Civil War and the Essex witch trials. It's not just one song, it's 20 songs. And when it came out, there was one review of it in a Scottish newspaper, and they gave it 1 star. And they said, it's too long and it's depressing. And I was like, I know, it's a double album about the English Civil War and the East Anglian witch trials. It's like, I mean, I didn't think it was going to be a party album.
Yeah, it's true. Let's listen to a little bit of We Are Not Evil, and then there's one more off of The Violence.
We fight them with fire, duck them underwater, swing them from the scaffold, turn their faces pale.
And I guess it's not off of The Violence itself, because the notes I have here say it's off of an EP, right? That is accompanying it.
There's a single called a song on The Violence called Henrietta Maria, which in some ways was not the sole reason for the war, but it didn't help that our king in a largely Protestant country married a very glamorous and beautiful Catholic queen. That caused a lot of trouble. So I wrote a song about her, and then that was a single. And then I thought, what if the EP, little cute little 10-inch record, what if I wrote 4 songs about 4 different queens? So God, now I've got to remember who they're about. Eleanor of Aquitaine, Elizabeth I, which we're going to listen to, and Lady Jane Grey, who was the 9-day queen. She was queen for 9 days. Yeah, you were right to ask about research. Yeah, I loved researching all this stuff. But, you know, going back to an earlier answer, it's a puzzle. You know, you have all this research and you're like, great, I know lots of things now about this area of history. But, you know, you can't put all that in a song because songs don't survive that much exposition. You can't have people lectured in songs, and the songs still have to have like an emotional center. They still have to have a chorus, and essentially they still have to be pop music. And so that puzzle about how do you get all that research and then make a song out of it. The other thing to say about this song we're going to hear is I don't sing it.
So I wanted to ask about that. Can you shout out who is singing on this?
It's Elizabeth Morris. I thought I wrote a song where the chorus is, she says, I am Elizabeth I. And I thought I might as well get someone who is Elizabeth. And I also thought it was kind of funny because it sounds like Liz is just bragging. It sounds like she's saying, like if a real Elizabeth is saying I'm Elizabeth I, it's like she's saying I am the best Elizabeth. And so I thought that was funny to make her sound slightly silly by singing the song. Elizabeth Morris from the band Allo Darling.
Love it. All right. Well, let's listen to a little bit of it. I guess the very, what would you call it? Braggadocious Elizabeth on there claiming she's the first. Here it is. Elizabeth the First.
Awake each night, thinking that I might have been reckless to slay luckless earls and cousins.
And there we go. That's your mixtape. Normally, I, in this space, ask for honorable mentions, but I feel like this was a bit of one where
the honorable mentions, I suppose, in a way, could be that this thing with Jamie and I don't know, like we talked earlier about like the negative aspects of Spotify and streaming culture, and the most obvious negative aspect of it is not much money in it. But the positive aspect is you can kind of release what you want with few overheads. So the honorable mentions possibly are quite a few future records that we're planning to do that never got released. So, for instance, the French made a second album that never got released. The Long Parliament turned into a band called The Trial Separation, Darren Hayman, The Trial Separation. And we made an album called Hold On, Let Go, Hold On, Let Go. And so those are two entire albums that nobody's ever heard that we are hopefully going to release probably within next year on streaming. So they could be the honorable mentions, maybe.
Amazing. Those are great honorable mentions. And I guess one quick question before we go to break. Are there any things that you've worked on that like just have not survived, whether that's like the hard drive got corrupted or there was a tape that got like misplaced or something, or are you pretty good at keeping everything?
Yeah, well, I mean, yes. I mean, the way we've done this, the way this has worked occasionally is Jamie is just sort of on WhatsApp whilst I'm picking up a drive. I mean, the sort of serious side of this is that I am like a lot of people, I think I'm diagnosed ADHD, and I'm no good at archiving things. And unless something gets finished and released within a certain amount of time, I just forget about it and it goes. There was an interview with Paddy McAloon from Prefab Spout, and there was this part in the interview where he said, sometimes I write a song and record a song again because I can't be bothered finding it. And when he said it, like loads of people reacted to it thinking, that's the maddest thing I've ever heard. That's the maddest thing I ever heard. And when I read it, I was like, oh, I do that too. And I didn't think it was mad at all. I just thought it was like, So, yeah, undoubtedly. Yeah.
My closest brush to that is that I don't write down any of the songs, so I don't actually know how to play any of them. I just kind of...
Yeah, that is also a problem I have sometimes. Because it's weird what your brain does sometimes that you can't find. So I have occasionally... My friend Robert, a guy called Robert Rottifer, who is a great singer-songwriter as well, but he's very one of those guys that can hear something and go, "Oh yeah, that's G A minor." Like those people that can just hear it, and so sometimes I send one of my songs to him and say, "Robert, can you teach me how to play this song because I can't remember?" And he'll just go back and go, "This is what you're playing here." So I sometimes use him for that.
We all need friends like that. I got a couple of those too. They're the best.
At annotating and very bad at archiving.
Well, I'm glad that Jamie stepped in and was able to start collecting some of these things because the world needs them, and we got 6 of them right here in the mixtape.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to play a really quick game, and then we will get the hell out of here. All right, we are back, and the game today is Firsts and Lasts. It's a classic here on the J Card. So let's kick it off. Darren, tell me a bit about the first instrument you ever acquired and the last instrument you've ever...
I believe the first instrument I acquired was a recorder, like a little flute recorder. You in England, I don't know about there, but you would often learn them at junior school. And it's almost borderline compulsory. You had to buy a recorder from the school and do recorder class. I think it might exist somewhere.
I was going to say, do you still have it?
I think I might, yeah. Last is really hard. I'm struggling to say for certain what is the last instrument I brought. I know a couple of years ago I brought, I don't even know what they're called, but they're like a metal Indian drum, like a steel drum. It's like a little thing like that. Boom, 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 boom. And it's one of those, like those instruments that you buy and just use once. You use it on a song. There you go. That's it. That's the reason I bought it, for that one song. And now it's back in a pile.
I was going to say, or you walk by it randomly and kind of give it one of these ding, and then you're like, I like that.
Another day. It will. Some advice I had once was whenever you buy a new instrument, is record everything you do on it for the first week, because that's when it's new to you. That's when all the rush of ideas come.
That's a good piece of advice. Next up, first and last tour that you went on. What's the first tour you went on and the last tour that you went on?
Well, maybe the first tour is that trip. I mean, what do we call tour? Like more than 2 shows?
I don't know. I would say it's more of a distance thing. I would say if you went a really long distance and did one show,
okay, well,
that's a tour to me.
In that case, it was that trip. I said really when I came over and played Vancouver. I think I played 1-2 shows in Vancouver and a couple of shows in Portland, and just went from London to the West Coast, just for shows, and then went back. So I guess that felt like a kind of an adventure. In that sense, it was a tour. The last tour I went on was, despite me saying I've given it up, what actually only was about 6 months ago. And I supported David Gedge from The Wedding Present, and he took me on a tour where I would play some songs and then I would interview him on stage and then he would play. And we're doing that again later this year. So that was weird because, I am a big fan of his.
I think that's great. Why? Because you're interviewing someone you're a fan of. It's awesome.
Well, also I managed to get the fee up because of the interview, because I felt like when I'm doing 2 sets. So.
Hell yeah, I love that. All right, and then the last one is artist that you were a super fan of. So who was the first artist you remember being a super fan of, and who is the most recent artist that you're a super fan of?
Remembering is a little tricky because I am told that I was a massive fan of the Bay City Rollers, even though I was only 2. So I don't know how clearly I remember this, but I was brought a Bay City Rollers album, which I still had, and I had a Bay City Rollers lampshade. which I don't have the one I had then, but I have got well, it's an original one, but I re-bought it so I could have it. So that was my first musical experience, although whether that was just a case of my parents deciding I was a Bay City Rollers fan. What's the most recent thing that I've properly become a fan of? I think like I'm a pretty massive fan of a country singer called Courtney Marie Andrews.
Interesting. Who is it? Is she still active? Is she active currently?
She churns it out. She does an album every year, and they're always really great. And it's always a bit sort of like sometimes she'll release an album and she's like, "I'm in love," and you're like, "Oh, I'm so glad." And then a year later, an album comes out, and you go, "Oh, that didn't last, did it?" Because then she'll be all heartbroken. And then the next one, love, and it's like I want good things for her, but also, you know, the heartbreak albums are quite good, you know.
You know, it's funny, I guess coincidental, is that we're recording this May 18th. It'll come out, I think, May 21st. And she's touring the United Kingdom right now. She's actually playing in Bristol tomorrow. So that's pretty crazy. And speaking of when we're releasing this is a great segue into plugs. Darren, why don't you tell the people what you got coming up, where they can find your music, where they can see you live, if you got anything coming up. What's going on?
Those shows I was just talking about are in September, so then you can see me play on my own and play with David. I can't remember where that's happening. There's a Brighton one. There's a Scottish one. There's some other ones. I think there's about 5. I might not be releasing an album this year, as in a proper, you can hold it in your hands, which is why it's perhaps a good year to be doing this stuff, getting the back catalog sorted. But there is an album by my rock and roll band New Starts that is pretty much finished. It's like 3/4 finished. Maybe we'll get that out by the end of the year, but maybe it'll be early next year. And I'm also writing an album of very short guitar instrumentals. It's going to have 20 guitar instrumentals on it. So that will be the next album I make.
Amazing. I love it. You've always got a lot of stuff going on, it seems like, and I love that. Listeners, viewers, what do I have for you? I don't know. We have the cassette tapes. Here you go. They're every quarter. We actually just got the June tapes in today, and I have not unboxed them yet, or else I would show them to the camera, but you might have to wait till next week to see those. Those tapes are getting in the mail tomorrow, so it's probably too late to sign up, unfortunately, for those, but it's never too late to sign up for the next ones. If you go to tapeclub.substack.com, that's where you can sign up. For $5 a month, you can get on the cassette mailers, or for free, you can just get the podcast, get the newsletter. I don't know.
What's on the cassette, Alexi?
What's on the cassette? Good question. I'm glad you asked. On the cassette is a compilation of songs from people who have submitted to the cassette. So any artist is free to submit any song they want in any state they want. It can be a demo, it can be a master, it can be whatever. And if it fits well with others, it becomes part of this cassette. So the last one, the one from March, here's a little track listing. It's got Leilani Patow on there. It's got, I'm reading it backwards. It's got Toyger on there. A band called TV Wonder is on there. It's got a lot of great stuff, and they're good for discovering new kind of smaller artists maybe who you don't know too much about. If you love discovering new music, it's a great thing to do. I want to give a quick shout out to Olivia Stonier, our associate producer, and obviously Jamie Halliday for helping with the booking as always. I, of course, want to give a shout out to you, Darren. Thank you for jumping on and doing this. I really appreciate it. And the biggest shout out of all to you, the listener and viewer, for listening and viewing. I will see you next time. Peace. The J-Card podcast is a fully independent production. It is made possible by listeners and viewers just like you. So if you want to support us, tapeclub.substack.com. www.substack.com is the place to go.